Show them what it costs to be friends with Katniss Everdeen.
No one can survive this.
We have to get him out before they kill him.
Mockingjay Part 1, rated PG-13, in theaters November 21st.
Hello, I'm the Universal Critic. I talk about whatever I want, whenever I want. In the last few years, there has been a huge wave of movies based on young adult novels, or YA novels for short. And like any popular trend in Hollywood, YA adaptations have had a pretty varied track record. Some have fared unbelievably well, others have been ridiculed 6 ways from Sunday, and others have just fallen into the okay pile. Today I am discussing the penultimate chapter of one of the biggest YA hits, The Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 1. Set immediately after the second film, Mockingjay Part 1 follows Katniss Everdeen, played by Jennifer Lawrence, as she is thrust headfirst into the rebellion that she helped inspire in the previous films. In order to defeat the tyrannical President Snow, played by Donald Sutherland, Katniss allies herself with the rebel group known as District 13, which is headed by President Coin, played by Julianne Moore, and Plutarch Heavensbee, played by the late Philip Seymour Hoffman. Under their uncompromising guidance, Katniss takes on the title of the Mockingjay, meant to be a symbol of hope to foment the growing revolution. But as the film shows, Katniss's future seems to be anything but hopeful. The strongest parts of this film by far are its characters and the political intrigue of the plot. Lawrence manages to convey both Katniss's idealism and her desire for justice against those who have wronged her, but also the desperation and uncertainty that someone like her would have in a civil war like this. And what I really like about this is the rebels using Katniss as a symbol and not a soldier. When it comes to any sort of political movement, it's not merely enough to have the might and power to achieve your goals, but you must also win over the hearts of the people and convince them to join your cause. The Mockingjay is meant to be this fearless girl who stands up for what is right without a second thought, and Katniss obviously wants to be that girl, but that's just it. The Mockingjay is not a person, she's a symbol, while Katniss is very much human, and that's why she is such an engaging character in this franchise. However, the one weak spot with her character is definitely the love triangle with Gale and Peeta, played by Liam Hemsworth and Josh Hutcherson respectively. I'll probably talk more about this when Part 2 comes out, but let's just say I just don't like the romance with Peeta. Their entire fling was built around lies and manipulation, and that's not helped by the fact that in this movie, Peeta is being used by the Capitol to further their cause, whereas Gale is a childhood friend who has stood by her no matter what. Sorry to gush there a bit. I mean, Hutcherson gives a solid performance, and you can see Lawrence being torn between her desire for justice and her feelings for him, but those who have read the books know how this turns out in the end, and personally I don't like it. I won't spoil it here, but when Part 2 comes out, expect a bit of a tirade. Just saying. The other characters on both sides of this conflict are also great. Sutherland plays Snow with such a great deal of restraint that it shows just how much of an uncompromising snake he really is. Moore plays Coin as a woman who seems to be on the right side of things, but might just have a secret agenda of her own, but more of that in Part 2. The relation between those two is best shown by the color scheme of Snow's mansion and District 13. The former is dominated by bleach white, a color that usually represents purity, but is also lifeless and inexpressive. The latter is a dark gray, a color that is often associated with moral ambiguity. Keep that in mind when you're watching both Moore and Sutherland in this film. As far as adaptation goes, it's been a while since I read the book, but this film is a fairly faithful adaptation from what I remember. Or at least it faithfully retells the first half of the book. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the split the final chapter in two fad, and in this case it causes the film's one major problem. It's lacking in action. The first half of the book was just the build-up to the Civil War, not the Civil War itself, and boy does it show in this film. This movie is just under 2 hours long, and we don't really get an action scene until a full 30 minutes into the movie. Even after that, the action scenes are few and far between, relatively speaking, and most of them don't even involve the main character, so there isn't as much investment as there would be otherwise. The story and characters are great, but this is an action film, and there needs to be more fighting to go along with the talking. Overall, I give Mockingjay Part 1 a high big screen rating. It's an action film with too little action, but has plenty of compelling characters and story elements to fill that void. It's a must-see, even if it is just kind of a 2-hour teaser for the next film. I'm the Universal Critic. I talk about whatever I want, whenever I want. Goodbye.
Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.